going on, Fourth Initiative Podcast listeners? You got Kev and Stevie P. What's up, Kev?
What's going on, Stevie P? Long time no talk. We're going to get into our quarterback, tight end, and defense rankings on this podcast. We will get into running backs and wide receivers, either tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday. We'll have it up there. Tonight is strictly reserved for those other three positions. And so, without further ado, let's get into it. You know what? Real fast, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into the rankings, I think we should talk about Andrew Luck.
Yes.
It came out yesterday that Luck was now going to be, I guess he suffered a bit of a setback and, he's now stopping throwing. How do you feel about that going forward, especially in terms of T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief?
Yeah, honestly, I know we said yesterday T.Y. Hilton is a buy. I still want to buy T.Y. He's just too talented, and you see what he can do in some games. I mean, he's had 2 games of over 150 yards. So, if you can buy him on the cheap, now that everybody knows that Andrew Luck might not be coming back this season, I still would do that for super cheap. I'd be trying to give up, a number 3 wide receiver, number 3 running back to try to get him, and hopefully people are freaking out and they try to get, just try to get rid of him. With that being said, Dante Moncrief to me is not playable. That basically tells me he's just not playable for me. The whole Andrew Luck situation, I really feel like the only way you can keep him is if you have an IR spot, because if you don't have an IR spot, there's no point in waiting for him to come back. And even if you do have an IR spot, I don't know if you want to play him in the playoffs, knowing that, in the championship game, he has Denver. I think he has, Baltimore, Denver, and another really good defense. So for me, you can drop Andrew Luck, for me. If you're in a keeper league, you definitely want to keep him. But other than that, you might be just, getting rid of Andrew Luck. Sorry to say, everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. It looks like from reports that, Indy's probably leaning on shutting him down for the season, which it was something that had to be thought about, once, they started the season and haven't really been as good. And that's what I was saying yesterday with regards to Marlon Mack and Frank Gore, or the other day. Eventually Marlon Mack has to get a little more burn out there, because now you're not going to have Luck playing. You got to see what these other kids have. And, Frank Gore, I don't know what his contract is or when it's up, if, this year would be his last year, but, they got to see what Marlon Mack can do and if he can handle a solid workload. With reference to that, I think that the Colts, with reference to T.Y. and Dante Moncrief, I'm totally with you on Moncrief. I think that he's basically a drop if you have him. I don't think you're ever playing him. And T.Y. for me, you can see where he has the talent to go off some games, and then there's just other games where he's just not involved. It's, if this is the way it's going to be, it wasn't, with Andrew Luck, it's not really like this, because Luck is throwing the ball all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But, Jacoby Brissett, like we said yesterday, targeted him 4 times in that game the other night. You're losing, I don't understand why you're not trying to get your best players involved, and targeting your best player 4 times is just ridiculous. I mean, it's almost like Julio or Dez getting 4 targets in a game. It's just, it's not enough, especially when your most talented player is, the guy that you're not giving the ball to. So, with that said, I guess you got to hang on to T.Y. because, he can go off in those games. But honestly, next time he goes off, I would sell him as high as I could. I would hope he goes off this week and then sell him as high as I could.
Yeah, I hear you. T.Y. is it's a tough pill to swallow, losing Andrew Luck, knowing that you're not going to get him at all this season. But I'm kind of approaching Ty the same way I would Ben Roethlisberger. Play him at home, sit him away. You know what I mean? That's basically what you got to do. Because if you look at his big games, they've been at home. So, unfortunately, this week is, I believe it's an away game in Jacksonville. So, this week I might, regardless to situation against Jacksonville, I'm not playing T.Y. Hilton anyway. So, it sucks, guys, but it is what it is. So we'll get to our ranks. I guess I'll go first, Kev.
Okay.
So at QBs, I have Tom Brady at 1. With no Aaron Rodgers, Brady's probably going to be at 1 for me every single week. Maybe in a tough matchup against the Broncos a little bit down the road, I might drop him to 3 or 4. But for right now, he's number 1. I got Carson Wentz, number 2. I just really like the matchup against Washington, especially with Josh Norman most likely not playing in this game. We'll find out a little bit later on in the week if that's a guarantee or not, and maybe that changes my opinion a little bit. But really like Carson Wentz if Norman's not playing. I got Breeze at 3. I got Prescott at 4. I got Cousins at 5. I got Taylor at 6. That's Tyrod Taylor. I got Mariota at 7. I got Matt Ryan at 8. I have Phillip Rivers at 9. I have Palmer at 10. I have Alex Smith at 11. And Russell Wilson at 12. I guess we can just let you do yours, Kev, and then we'll talk about the guys we want to talk about.
Yeah, we can just go into the guys. I guess we seem like there's definitely one guy I definitely want to ask you about. All right, so number 1, I also have Tom Brady. I think it's the same thing with me. Brady will probably be number 1 every week with Rodgers not in there. Number 2, I have Drew Brees. Number 3, I have Dak Prescott. Number 4, I have Carson Wentz. Number 5, I have Matt Ryan. Number 6, I have Marcus Mariota. Number 7, I have Kirk Cousins. Number 8, I have Russell Wilson. Number 9, I have Alex Smith. Number 10, I have Cam Newton. Number 11, I have Jameis Winston. And number 12, I have Carson Palmer.
Yeah, so we're pretty similar. I think the only guys we really, I have Tyrod Taylor in there. You have Cam Newton in there. That's basically the only difference in our quarterbacks.
The one guy I want to ask you, mainly just because, just doing our daily podcast a couple minutes ago, and hearing you talk about the Atlanta New England game and being high scoring. How do you feel about Matt Ryan? You have him at number 8.
Yeah, I have Matt Ryan at 8 only because I really like these other quarterbacks. I took Matt Ryan honestly in daily this week. I think he could have a big game, but in my rankings, I feel more comfortable with the other guys. I do. In daily, I do like to take a little bit of more of a chance. So if he is going to have a big game, I'm going to play him in daily. But the way I have to rank him with the way he's been playing, I can't put him above Cousins or Prescott or Breeze or Wentz or Brady. I just don't feel comfortable doing that. So I kind of feel like Cousins, Taylor, Mariota is right around the range of where I feel he's going to be. So I just ranked them a little bit outside those guys because of those actual 3 guys' rushing ability makes them, a little bit higher upside for me.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think this is a good matchup for Ryan to turn it around. But I kind of, looking at everybody, Ryan to me with the matchup with New England, they haven't been able to stop anybody. With the exception of Jameis, it seemed like for that 1 week. But I think Matt Ryan may be able to turn it around this week. That's all I'm going on.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going on. I know he hasn't played well, but another guy I guess I'll talk about is Kirk Cousins too. Kirk Cousins shreds Philly. I mean, he usually has pretty good games against Philly.
Yeah.
He has for last year. Let me see. Let me pull him up and see what his totals were in week 1. If I even can. Well.
Yeah. With Kirk Cousins, while you look at that, Kirk Cousins for me always seems to play better on primetime games. I don't know if that's just me.
Does.
Yeah, I don't know.
Definitely plays good.
Yeah, I like him during primetime games.
He was 23 of 40 for 240 and a touchdown. He did have an interception, so it wasn't a great game in week 1. But he typically plays well against Philly. I don't know if this is the year. Maybe it just seems to turn around because my Eagles are just flying high right now. But I think Cousins is going to have a pretty good game this week. I think it's actually going to be a high scoring game this week. I think that they're going to be able to. I think they're going to be able to move the ball a little, pretty well, and but I just think Carson Wentz is going to. I think Carson Wentz is going to shoot him up this week.
I hear that.
I'm right there with you with Carson at number 2. I have him at number 4, but I think Carson is going to light him up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially if there's no Josh Norman. If Josh Norman does play, I would probably I'd probably put him right. I actually probably would only move him down maybe 1 or 2 spots, maybe behind Dak Prescott. I might just put him behind Dak, but I really like Wentz this week, and he's been playing out of his mind good. So definitely top 5.
He's actually officially the number 1 MVP. Based on Vegas's odds, he's the number 1 MVP candidate right now.
I hear that. He looks like it. He looks great. So the other quarterback I want to talk about, Kev put Cam Newton in his top 12. I put Tyrod Taylor in my top 12. For me, Tyrod going up against Tampa Bay. We all saw what Tampa Bay looked like last week on defense. They're still not healthy. They're going to Buffalo. Buffalo it really is I've been to Buffalo to watch games, and it is it's like a college atmosphere in that stadium. Buffalo always plays well at home. And Tampa Bay, they just traveled from Arizona. Now they're going to, they traveled cross country to Arizona. Now they're going back across country to Buffalo, in a rough stadium to play in. So, Tyrod coming off a bye week, I just feel like they've set themselves up to really put a hurting on Tampa Bay this week, and I could see Tyrod getting 50 or 60 rushing yards along with a little over 200 passing yards and maybe 2 touchdowns. So I definitely like Tyrod this week.
I'm 100% in on Cam this week. I know Cam's matchup isn't great because Chicago defensively has actually been pretty sufficient in holding people in check.
Mm-hmm.
But his last 3 weeks, he in our league scoring. I mean, there's a lot of bonuses in our league, so the scores may be a little high. But in our league, Steve, Cam has had a 43, a 36.8, and a 26.8 in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I just think that he's kind of found his groove. Last week he started rushing the ball. He had 11 carries for 71 and a touchdown last week. I just think Cam's starting to put it together. I know he took an injury on that shoulder last week, so I don't know how that's going to affect him. But I think if Cam plays, I just think he's found his groove, and that they're going to have to rebound off of last week if they want to keep staying into this ahead of that division and in the playoff hunt.
I hear that. Really, for me, the only reason I don't have Cam into my top 12 is the Chicago Bears seem to be, if you looked at the stat line last week, they ran the ball 50 times.
Yeah.
They're trying to take time of possession away from teams and not have their rookie quarterback out there throwing 1,000 times. So I just feel like Chicago is sufficient at running the ball with Howard and Cohen, and I kind of just feel like they're going to take the air out of the ball and run, and that'll eat up clock. And Cam, I still think he has a good game, but I just couldn't put him over Palmer, Smith, or Wilson. Smith has been, if I was going to take him out, I would drop Smith out only because Smith is He's got the Oakland team, an Oakland team that he doesn't really play well against. If you look at his numbers, he hasn't been great against them, but he's playing at an MVP level too. I got it on pause real quick. I'm gonna run over there and I gotta put his car seat in her car. All right, so yeah, like I said, Alex Smith, has had some terrible games, but you're gonna get into Carson Palmer, Kev.
Yeah, I want to talk about Carson Palmer really quick. I think that the addition of Adrian Peterson is a huge addition for Carson Palmer. I think that we saw last week they opened the run game up, and it kind of opened up the pass game for Palmer. He was able to throw the ball. Fitzgerald was catching. I think he had 10 catches in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that Palmer is a guy to keep your eye on. I'm not going to say he's an every week starter going forward, but he's in my top 12 this week against the Rams because technically the Rams give up a lot of points and they score a lot of points. But I think that this week Palmer's a top 12 play, and I think that, like I said, he's a guy to keep your eye on going forward because if AP is going to be running the ball like that, it's going to open up the passing game. And the reason why Arizona needs that run game to be working in order to pass effectively is because they take so many shots downfield. If you heard it, you've probably heard a lot. Bruce Arians' quote is "No risk it, no biscuit." That kind of means that he likes to take shots down the field. In order for that to be a good thing, you have to be able to run the ball and draw those safeties in, whether it's play action or you have to just so that the safety's focused on the running back a little bit. And now with the running game opening up, I feel like this is a chance for Carson Palmer to kind of get his groove back. So, like I said, keep an eye on Carson Palmer.
I hear that.
Going forward.
Yeah, I hear that. I have him at 10. Carson Palmer's basically been in my top 12 almost every week this year. And like Kev said, that just opens up the offense for him, and I like him the rest of season if he can continue to play the way he played last week.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, so we're going to go with tight ends. I think me and Kev are consensus every week. It's Gronk, number 1.
Not even a question.
So we got Gronk 1, then I have Ertz 2, I have Kelsey 3. I like Kelsey tonight. The Raiders have just, given points up to every position, and Kelsey seems to always kill the Raiders, so I like Kelsey tonight. I got Evan Ingram at 4. I got Tyler Braid at 5. I got ASJ at 6. I got Jimmy Graham at 7. I have Delaney Walker at 8. I have Jordan Reed at 9. I have Kittle at 10. I have Hunter Henry at 11. I actually split them in half because I couldn't figure out who I liked better. So I put Austin Hooper and Jason Witten both at 12. So, either one of those guys, if you have them, I'm sorry, but I can't choose between the two. I kind of like both of them this week.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I have Gronk at 1. I have Ertz at 2. You know my kind of disdain for Jimmy Graham, but I'm going to put him at number 3 this week.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, I have Kelsey. Number 5, I have Ingram. Number 6, I have Delaney Walker. Number 7, I have Cameron Brate. Number 8, I have Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Number 9, I have Hunter Henry. Number 10, I have Kyle Rudolph. Number 11, I have Jason Witten. And number 12, I have Zach Miller.
Yeah, I actually like the rookie throwing it to Zach.
Exactly. I've been saying it since the beginning when we started the podcast. Rookie quarterbacks have that safety valve at tight end, and Zach Miller pretty much right now is their best weapon outside of maybe Kendall Wright.
Yeah.
At least in the passing game. I know they got Tariq Cohen out of the backfield, but as far as a wide receiver or tight end, it's a guy catching the ball. I think that Zach Miller's probably their best target, and rookie quarterbacks love to lean on the tight end.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So the guy that I actually want to talk about in this list here is Austin Seferian-Jenkins, ASJ. I always refer to him as ASJ. So if you guys hear me say ASJ, you're not sure who I'm talking about Austin Seferian-Jenkins. The reason I want to talk about ASJ is I think I like him rest of season as a top 6 tight end. Just with the amount of targets he's getting and how big he is, he is just a red zone threat. And as long as, it doesn't seem to me like, what's his name, is going to be losing that quarterbacking job. What is his name? Drawing a blank here.
Josh McCown.
Yeah, Josh McCown is going to be losing that job. As well as they're playing. I think they kind of know any quarterbacks behind him they're terrible, and they're just going to ride him out.
That's one question I have. See, this is the definition of bad franchises.
Yep.
Why draft a guy in the second round if you're never even going to give him an opportunity?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand it.
Bro, I'll be honest with you.
Yesterday took Hackenberg in the second round, and he hasn't even stepped on the field yet. They're not even giving him a chance to play.
Yeah, I hear you. I was never a Hackenberg fan, even in college. But watching him in the preseason, I don't blame them. I really think they screwed the pooch on that pick. I think they bought the hype, and he, to me, just doesn't look good in the preseason. He's just been really, really bad. And Bryce Petty, same thing. He had that one game.
I was going to say, Petty didn't look too bad this preseason. He just got hurt after.
Yeah. Bryce Petty, I think, they know is a career backup. You know what I mean?
He's a career backup.
Yeah, definitely. They know he's a career backup. And,
I just think that if you're going to waste a second round pick, you got to give him a chance at some point. Even if it's you're not doing anything this year anyway. Who knows? Right now they're 3-3 or 3-2 or something.
Yeah,
so maybe they want to make the playoffs. I can't see why they would want to make the playoffs at this point in their, I guess, their rebuilding experiment. But to me, like, if you spend a second round pick, throw him out there for 8 games this year and see what happens. And if he doesn't look good, then you toss him to the wayside. But I just don't understand that. But go ahead, let's get back into the tight ends.
Yeah, so the tight ends, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, the reason I want to talk about him is, I just want to go over his game log. We all know week 1 and 2, he has zeros. The reason being he was on suspension. But ever since, he's had at least 4 catches in every game. He was 5 for 31. He was 4 for 46. He was 6 for 29 and a touch. 8 for 46 and a touch. Should have had 2 touchdowns last week, but I'm not going to talk. What could have, should have been. Terrible calls. So, but should have had 2 touchdowns last week. To me, he's getting the targets on the team. He's 100% Josh McCown's red zone threat. To me, Josh McCown, if you watch that Jets New England game, in the red zone, he literally didn't look at anybody else. The ball, he was snapped and literally just looked at ASJ. So if that's going to be the case going forward, I really like ASJ. His matchups coming up are Miami, Atlanta, Buffalo, Tampa Bay. Then they got a bye. Then they come back with Carolina, which is tough. But then they got KC, Denver, which is tough. But then New Orleans and the Chargers in the the last 2 games of the playoffs. So, and we all know that Denver gives up points to the tight end position. So it's not a matchup that scares me. ASJ rest of the season for me is a top 6 tight end, and I love him this week.
Yeah, Austin Seferian-Jenkins seems like he's a guy turning it around as far as his career. He's kind of flamed out in
Tampa
a couple
Bay.
Different places. Where he was in Tampa. Where else was he? He was somewhere else.
Yeah, he went. I want to say he got picked. I'm trying to think who picked him up. Somebody picked him up and then just let him go, and the Jets signed him. I can't remember who the other team was.
Yeah, I can't either, but he was a guy that, coming out of college had a lot of hype. He was, 6'7", with a good amount of speed, and it just seemed like a very valuable weapon. And like I said, he flamed out in Tampa, but he seems like he's starting to turn it around. Hopefully, maybe a long-term tight end answer for the Jets. For me, I guess I already kind of talked about him in our daily, so I guess I'll go into it again. Like I said, Jimmy Graham's usually a guy I can't stand, just because, especially now in Seattle, just because he's so unpredictable. But this week, I think that I think that the Giants have a talented defense, and they kind of have to perform if they're going to win football games.
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to have to put their best foot forward. like I said, they have talent on the defense. They spent $200 million last year on that defense. It hasn't shown this year, but right now with the offense just so depleted, they need to step up. With that being said, I think that it opens the middle of the field because I think that Landon Collins is not the greatest cover safety. I'm not big on the Giants linebackers. Their linebackers have never, ever really been that good. They have good corners. They have Janoris Jenkins and Antonio Rogers-Cromartie and Eli Apple out there. Apple's been giving up some big plays, but overall I like their secondary. So I think this kind of, should be a game where Jimmy Graham is kind of the big focal point of the Seattle offense. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie has seemed to be their slot corner, and I think he's done a good job of it. So he may be on Doug Baldwin a lot this game. So I think, like I said, that kind of opens it up a little bit for Jimmy Graham to have a big game. I have him at number 3. I have him ahead of Kelsey. I'm big on Jimmy Graham this week.
I hear that. I actually just looked it up. Austin Sperry-Jackson actually is only with Tampa Bay and the Jets. The only 2 teams that he signed with. Yep. But
I thought he got picked up somewhere else, but maybe he just got picked up and cut. And never actually even registered.
Exactly.
Never actually count as a team.
Exactly. So I agree with Jimmy Graham. I love Jimmy Graham this week. The Giants have been giving up the second most points to the tight end position. And Jimmy Graham is a big play tight end. So I can definitely see him with 60 yards and a touch, maybe 5 or 6 catches. And
that would be a hell of a week for him.
Yes, it would. So for me, the next guy I want to talk about, and probably my last tight end I want to talk about, is Hunter Henry. So I looked up the stats on Hunter Henry for the past, I believe it's 3 weeks. Between him and Antonio Gates, the spread seems to be getting further in the distance of Henry's side. Before they were basically, Gates was out-snapping him the first 2 games of the season by an outrageous number, which kind of made me angry personally because I think, as soon as Antonio Gates got that touchdown, they should have just let him retire.
Yeah, pretty much. There's no reason to let him go any further.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hunter Henry is he's a really good football player.
Yes,
I understand you want to keep Gates around, and you can't just say, all right, you're done. We don't want you anymore. To a legend. But at this point, man, your best bet is just to let him ride off into the sunset right now. Go with Hunter Henry as their main guy, and then if you have 2 tight end sets, I guess you throw Gates out there. But Hunter Henry's a good player. He should start taking over that role, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. And, the snaps count is starting to show that. It's, past 3 games, total snap count is 100 for Hunter Henry and 75 for Antonio Gates. So he's starting to pull away from the, Antonio Gates pack. And if that is the case, I think he could start, hitting in the top 12 every week. And when he does start, getting, I would say, 60, 70% of the snaps, to me, he'll be an every week starter. And hopefully that starts this week. And we can start seeing Hunter Henry on the field a lot because I think he has supreme upside compared to Antonio Gates. So, like Hunter Henry this week, and I'm going to be playing him in basically every format.
Gotcha. A guy I talk about, I have him at number 7, I believe, Cameron Brate. They drafted O.J. Howard in the first round, and a lot of people thought that, Cameron Brate was just going to fall by the wayside. But Cameron Brate was actually a very solid fantasy option last year at tight end. And this year, he's been money. It's with tight ends, the touchdowns catch is such a big, so important for the tight end scoring, because a lot of tight ends aren't Gronk. They're not putting up Gronk numbers where they're getting, 6 catches, 7 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. That's not really a lot. The consistency of tight ends, that's just Gronk. So looking at these last 4 weeks, he scored a touchdown in every week. Last week he did it with Fitzpatrick as his quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Cameron Brate is the top 5 tight end going forward, mainly because I think that the offense and Jameis Winston both are heavily rely on the tight end. I brought up, I think last week, I forget the guy's name now, but his tight end at Florida State used to just catch touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. And, it seems like Cameron Brate's just stepping into that role now and doing a damn good job of it. I really am kind of curious why they even drafted O.J. Howard if they were going to use Cameron Brate so much because, like I said, I thought Cameron Brate was a very good tight end last year.
Yeah.
But, maybe they just went with the best player available, and O.J. Howard definitely could be a beast, once he gets his feet under him. But I like Cameron Brate, and like I said, I think he's a top 5 tight end going forward for the rest of the year.
I hear that. I think mainly the reason they took O.J. Howard was his blocking ability. Cameron Brate is a terrible blocker. Just watching the tape, you can see he gets blown up crazy often. He just doesn't have the size to block a defensive end. So O.J. Howard has that size, and he also has the downfield threat of receiving. So O.J. Howard, we told you guys in the beginning of the season, O.J. Howard, wasn't going to be anything. In the beginning of the season, because normally rookie tight ends are not anything their first season. But, look for O.J. Howard, next year, the year after. I can definitely see him start using a 2 tight end system with, the wide receivers they have. They have the speedy wide receiver they've been searching for in Deshaun Jackson, and, that can stretch the field. And Mike Evans is just an animal. So, having those 2 tight ends out there with those 2 wide receivers could be dangerous next year.
Very true, very true.
Yep. All right, so go to the defense.
That's pretty much it. I was going to say that's pretty much it on tight ends.
Yeah. Yep.
So we can get into the defenses now.
All right.
I'll go first on the defenses. Number 1, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I think that last week was a mirage, and they turned it around this week. I think that they come off. First off, they're coming off a bye week, and second off, I think that the Giants' offense is just not very good. Their last week was kind of a mirage. I don't think that's going to be able to happen going forward. Number 2, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Number 3, the Minnesota Vikings. Number 4, the Carolina Panthers. Number 5, I have the Tennessee Titans. Number 6, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Number 7, I have the Denver Broncos. Number 8, I have the Carolina Panthers. Number 9, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 10, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 11, I have the Los Angeles Rams. And number 12, I have the New Orleans Saints.
All right. For me, I'm not going to go crazy into elaborating kind of what Kev did. I'm just going to read the names off. And so I got the Panthers at 1. I have the Bills at 2. I have the Jags at 3. I have the Seahawks at 4. I have the Dolphins at 5. The Vikings at 6. The Steelers at 7. The Titans at 8. The Cowboys at 9. The Saints at 10. The Broncos at 11. And the Philadelphia Eagles at 12.
Okay.
Honestly, I guess the Seahawks are really the only team I'll talk about because I have them at 4. Kevin has them at 1. Really, I don't think Eli is going to be chucking the ball down the field regardless of whether they're winning or losing this game. If you saw last week, they were winning the game, but Eli really wasn't chucking it downfield at all in that game. He was kind of chucked down Charlie, and I think Eli is very sufficient in doing that. If he, with Odell Beckham on the team, he takes more chances downfield, but if he's throwing the ball within the 10-yard lines, I kind of feel like he is able to make those types of passes and move the offense. To me, the offense was more efficient last week than it's been all season long. And it was just because they were checking down every single play and just, taking 4 and 5 yards, and not really, doing anything that was going to kill them. And so, I could see that being the same deal this week. And, the Seahawks shutting them down point-wise, but not really a whole lot of turnovers or anything like that.
Yeah, that's true. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if it was a shutout, to be honest with you.
I
mean, the way they played last week and what we're talking about, that kind of just plays into Seattle's hands because they're so great at keeping everything in front of them.
Yep.
And if that's the way you're going to try and do it, you're not going to beat Seattle. You can't check down against Seattle. You got to actually take shots and, definitely got to run the ball well. And I don't know how well the Giants are going to be able to run the ball, knowing that, Orleans Darkwood, like you said, he had a good week last week, but that dude's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He's not somebody that's going to, turn around and be making big strides going forward. So, yeah, I think Seattle's number one this week, mainly because I think they honestly could shut out the Giants.
I hear that. All right, everybody. So that is our podcast for today. We will get back to you guys with running backs and wide receivers. We're not going to do it today, obviously, but we will have our ranks done today. So you're going to hear some Thursday night names in our lists, but
yes.
It'll just give you guys a sense of how we did going into the weekend, if you ask me. So, so running backs and wide receivers, we'll try to get done tomorrow. If not, we'll be on Saturday. And good luck tonight, everybody, with your DFS lineups that we gave you guys earlier. And good luck with your fantasy lineups this weekend.
Good luck to you, everybody, and, take it easy.
All
we'll
right,
be
everybody.
back soon.
All right, everybody.